the Brazen Bull. In ancient Greece, during the reign of Phalaris, the tyrant of Acragas in Sicily, one of the most infamous instruments of torture was created the Brazen Bull. Designed by a craftsman named Perilos, it was a life-sized bronze bull, hollow on the inside, with a door built into its side. Victims were placed inside, and a fire was lit beneath the structure, heating the metal until it glowed red-hot. As the Persian inside was roasted alive, the bull's intricate pipe system converted their screams into sounds resembling a roaring animal. The device was both a symbol of power and a spectacle of cruelty used to punish traitors, criminals, and dissenters. According to legend, Phalaris himself eventually met his death in the same bull he had commissioned a poetic end befitting the brutality he endorsed. Schapism. Originating from ancient Persia, Schapism was among the most excruciating methods of execution ever recorded. The condemned was placed between two narrow wooden boats or hollowed-out tree trunks, leaving only the head, hands, and feet exposed. The victim was force-fed milk and honey until severe diarrhea set in, after which their exposed skin was coated with honey to attract insects. Over several days, the person was left to float in stagnant water or under the sun as flies, worms, and maggots consumed the flesh. Greek historians, including Plutarch, describe the process as lasting more than a week, during which the victim slowly decomposed alive. Schapism represented not only physical torment but deliberate humiliation, a punishment designed to strip the condemned of humanity before death. Lingchi, death by 1,000 cuts. For centuries in imperial China, Lingchi, translated as slow slicing or death by 1,000 cuts, served as a punishment for crimes such as treason, murder, and parricide. First documented during the Tang dynasty, it persisted until its official abolition in 1905. The condemned was tied to a wooden frame while the executioner methodically removed flesh in stages, prolonging consciousness as long as possible. Some accounts suggest that the process could last up to an hour, with the final cut often being a decapitation or disembowelment. Lingchi was not merely an execution, but a moral warning, a symbolic dismemberment of the body and spirit meant to deny the offender dignity in death. Photographs taken in the early 20th century, during the punishment's final years, shocked Western observers and became enduring symbols of human cruelty institutionalized through law. The breaking wheel. In medieval Europe, the breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was used to execute those convicted of severe crimes such as murder, robbery, or heresy. The condemned was tied to a large wooden wheel, and executioners shattered their limbs with an iron bar or hammer. The broken body was then woven between the spokes and displayed publicly as a warning. Death could come from shock, blood loss, or prolonged exposure. In some cases, executioners showed partial mercy by striking a final blow to the chest or neck, ending the ordeal. The wheel became a symbol of divine justice, its circular form representing the moral turning of fate. For centuries, it was considered one of the most terrifying punishments in Europe, an instrument not only of death, but of public instruction. Flaying alive. Flaying, the removal of skin from a living person, was practiced in numerous ancient civilizations, including Assyria, Persia, and among the Aztecs. Assyrian reliefs depict the skins of rebels nailed to city walls as warnings to others. In Persia, offenders such as corrupt judges were sometimes flayed and their skin displayed over the chair they once occupied, a grim symbol of justice reclaimed. The process was slow and deliberate, often beginning with the limbs and working inward. Death resulted from shock, infection, or blood loss. Flaying served both practical and psychological functions, ensuring terror through visible consequence and desecration of the body. In Aztec rituals, it also held religious significance. Priests wore the flayed skins of sacrificial victims as part of ceremonies honoring Siptotec, the god of renewal and rebirth. In every context, the act conveyed both punishment and ritual meaning, binding cruelty to belief. Impalement. Impalement was one of the most feared methods of execution in ancient and medieval history. Used by Assyrians, Ottomans, and famously by Vlad III of Wallachia, the historical figure behind the legend of Dracula, it involved piercing the body with a sharpened stake driven through the torso or rectum and set upright. Victims could take hours or even days to die as gravity slowly pulled the body downward. Vlad's use of impalement in the 15th century against invading armies and local enemies became infamous. Chroniclers claimed that forests of impaled corpses surrounded his strongholds as warnings to foes. Though horrifying, impalement was also considered a political statement, a spectacle of deterrence where cruelty served as control. The Blood Eagle. Norse sagas describe a ritualized execution known as the Blood Eagle, allegedly performed by Viking warriors as vengeance for betrayal or murder. Though historians debate its accuracy, the method was described in medieval texts with chilling detail. The victim's ribs were cut open from the back, the bones spread outward to resemble wings, and the lungs pulled through the openings. Salt was sometimes rubbed into the wounds to prolong agony. Whether myth or reality, the Blood Eagle embodied the Viking ideal of ritual vengeance and the sacred duty of honor-bound punishment. Its inclusion in the Orkneyinga saga and Heimskringla transformed it into legend, a symbol of both the brutality and ritualized justice of the Norse world. Death by sawing is across medieval Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. Sawing was a punishment reserved for high treason, heresy, or infanticide. Victims were hung upside down, legs spread apart, and sawn in half vertically, often beginning from the groin. Hanging the body inverted kept blood flowing to the brain, prolonging consciousness during the process. Historical accounts attribute its use to the Roman Emperor Caligula, as well as medieval inquisitors. Some depictions suggest that the condemned were fully conscious for much of the procedure. It was both execution and spectacle, performed publicly to reinforce religious and political authority through visible suffering.